my. Back just in time.
We're rolling apparently. Welcome to October
3rd.
Thank you. 3rd. Imago Dei. There will not be one on the 17th. There will not be an Imago Dei on the 31st because of Halloween. 17th is Colleen and her son's fault. So the next time we meet will be the first Friday in November. We're going to start on page 322, although we finished off on 321. The next quote that I want to look at is actually in 322. We're on humanity and current events or current issues. We're looking at abortion to begin with. There's a lot of related issues that we're facing in our culture, and we'll probably go through the other two relatively quickly because they're the same principles that apply to all of them. But let's begin with a word of prayer before we start. Father, be with our discussion tonight. Thank you again for your word that gives us clarity about your values and the way we should be looking at the world and looking at ourselves and looking at these issues. Father, help us to give priority to your word above everything else in our lives that would influence our decision making. Father, thank you again for this class, for those that have come tonight. Be with the deaners who are not feeling well. Help them to feel better. And thank you again for all you've done for us, especially in sending Jesus. In his name we pray. Amen. Page 322. If someone would read that Doug McIntosh quote about 60% of the way down the page on 322.
In all the wars in which Americans have participated, about 1.1 million of our citizens have been killed. Since the Roe v. Wade ruling in 1973, more than 28 times that number have been exterminated through abortion. According to the Alan Guttmacher Institute, the research arm of Planned Parenthood, over 95% of the abortions in America take place for reasons of convenience, not because of incest, rape, or the threatened health of the mother.
And I remember very distinctly the whole abortion debate in the late 60s and early 70s because it was a constant theme in my household that this was the governing factor of why we needed to allow abortions because of incest, rape, or threatened health of the mother. Thoughts on that statistic?
I remember Dobson talking about that too, that they were willing to compromise and say abortion's allowed just for incest, rape, or whatever the third one was.
That's it.
And and they wouldn't back down. They wanted, he said, if we would have compromised, it would have only been for those reasons.
Other thoughts?
It is kind of shocking.
28 times. Yeah, I mean, this is all wars from Revolutionary up to present. Going on, this is the bottom of Mother Teresa on the bottom 322. Someone read that, please, if you would, please.
Mother Teresa of Calcutta, keynote speaker at the 1994 National Prayer Breakfast in Washington, D.C. If we accept that a mother can kill even her own child, how can we tell other people not to kill each other? Any country that accepts abortion is not teaching its people to love, but to use any violence to get what they want.
Thoughts?
I don't call them mothers.
Mother Teresa?
No.
Oh,
Because
the
a mother
mother
can
of
kill
the...
her child. I don't call them mothers.
Yeah.
They're not mothers.
Huh.
They have never held that baby and taken care of it. They're really not mothers. So,
Well, you can make a case for that. Fred?
I just enjoy it when somebody, when you cut away from all the mumbo jumbo language and somebody cuts right to the chase of what's really.
And she was a master at doing that with her petite little polite way. It just, she was a surgeon with a scalpel. That was.
And I mean, and you can, and you've always heard people throw rocks at the presenters in different situations. She had nothing that anybody could throw rocks at.
Yeah.
I mean, her life exemplified.
Right. Well,
servanthood.
yeah. And she was so small and so frail, you thought you were attacking a child, you know? And then, because of her life work, she just had so much integrity that who would dare take up an issue against her? Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Sharon.
Colleen, I might take exception to your thought. If you're going to call the baby a baby, the mother is needed to have a baby.
Well, they don't call
I
them
un-
babies
I-
either, they call them a fetus.
I know what you're
That's
saying
true.
though, but I think you've
She's
got
the
to,
conceiver, not the.
yeah.
Wouldn't we argue that they wouldn't want to be a mother, and that's part of the reason why they're doing it in the first place?
Oh,
They don't want that
evidently, yeah, that's true. But I think mother is actually a,
You know, there's mothers biologically and there's
Yes.
mothers emotionally. And obviously,
Absolutely.
they're not mothers emotionally. But
Absolutely.
you'd have to make the case that there are mothers biologically.
There's something Herman sent me that talks about babies in the womb and how communication is interchangeable
Oh,
between
yeah.
the mom and the baby. It's too long to read for class, but I can read it for all of us after class. It's actually quite fascinating.
Yeah, it's fascinating. I've read, well, Dobson had studies on that way back 30 years ago. It's fascinating.
So if anybody wants to hear it after
Yeah.
class, I'd be happy to read it.
Other thoughts? Otherwise, we're going to the top of 323. Ted, we got two Teds. 323, here's Alan Keyes again. Remember, he's the guy that had the speech at Focus on the Family. This is a book that was written shortly after that.
You sent me a video, it was like this many. It's like-
The young woman says, "I must kill this innocent unborn child to save my womanhood." The young gangster says, "I must kill an innocent stranger so I can prove my manhood." Mrs. Clinton says, "The first is a right and the second an outrage, yet both exhibit the same ruthlessly self-regarding passion."
Alan Keyes is another guy that cuts quick. Him and Chuck Colson and Mother Teresa, I think, have a masterful way of cutting through all the side issues and getting to the heart of the issue. Thoughts?
I think the fundamental problem is people don't understand that that unborn child is a human.
They don't care.
As I've read different quotes in here, no, we don't want to go to war because we're going to shoot a person that we're seeing. They can't see that.
Fred, I think, is going to answer my question, my response.
Possibly. But what's disturbed me the most for the last 5-10 years, I'm starting to hear, because all the abortion argument was always that, it wasn't a life up until a certain point.
Yes.
There are people now in the pro-abortion camp that is saying, yes, it is a life. We know it's a life. We still have the right to take it.
Oh, my.
Right, my
Yeah,
body.
that's changed in the
My
past.
right.
It's closer to 10 years, but yeah.
That's what, when I started hearing, and I heard, different people saying this, that's when it was like, whoa. I mean, at least they're finally being, I guess they're having integrity in their position, because these arguments show the lack of integrity of their position. But basically, yeah, it's a life. I know it's a life. I just.
Sometimes I like to live in the past.
Yeah.
I think their attitude is that that life isn't as valuable as my life, though, or they're
Well,
a
obviously, they'd have to think.
second-class citizen where I'm a first-class citizen, or kind of like slaves, were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long ago did you start to hear that argument?
Probably within the last, I was aware of it the last 5 years. I mean, just things I've read and listened to, I would say that they probably started saying it 10 years ago.
Lacey was still in high school when that, because her classmates, it was obvious that the pro-choice students were totally aware and didn't disagree that it was a life, just believed that the mother should have the right to exterminate it if they wanted to. That was.
I think back in, sort of our day, 45 years ago, the argument would have been it's a mass of cells,
Right,
and that's all.
Right.
It's no more than a snail.
right.
So,
Science doesn't
What's the
allow
big
that
deal?
to be an
Yeah.
option anymore.
Yeah, then that's where the advancement of science has negated that whole argument. Jan?
I just listened to Charlie Kirk,
Hmm.
so many of his podcasts defending life and explaining and how he can take people that are in favor of abortion and just very calmly sit there and keep asking them a few questions, and then they go off on a tangent. He sets his mic down, he just sits back and waits. And then when they're done with their rampage, then he just picks it up and asks a couple little simple questions. And they're just blown away. There's no defense. So it's his podcasts that are out now, and more people are seeing them. At least it's helping to get the message across.
Exponentially more people are seeing them. I can't tell you how many people did not even know Charlie Kirk existed 2 weeks ago, or 2 weeks ago, and now are regularly listening to his podcast. So, I mean, the amount of viewership or listenership is exponentially greater than what it was before.
Well, on Facebook, there's reel after reel after reel.
Yeah.
You don't even have to look for them. They're just right there in your face, and which is great, you know.
I heard a week ago that 15 billion viewers have seen his
Wow.
podcast.
Wow.
It's amazing how they still lie about what he said. You can see that you're just not telling the truth, because he's very clear in what he says about people and
You know,
his view on things.
I really think people are getting smarter with them not listening to mainstream, the legacy news, and listening to podcasts and going directly to original sources have made people wiser than they were 30 years ago in our day and age, where we just took the evening news as being fact. You know, I don't think a lot of people don't do that anymore.
The lefties losing it crowd are just don't want to back down on their views.
Well, sure.
Everybody else is just
It's
lying.
hard to admit you're wrong.
Yeah.
I'm hesitant too.
Public eye.
Huh?
I'm hesitant too.
What was that, Jean?
Especially when you're in the public eye, you don't want to back down.
Going ahead. I gotta remember what this one's about. Nah, we're gonna skip that one. Someone read the James D. Kennedy at the bottom of 323. Actually, no, 90% of the way through 323.
Starting with abortion.
Yes.
Abortions, mercy killing, using a woman or a child to gratify sexual needs, active homosexuality, these are hardly new tendencies. What is new is that Western Judeo-Christian culture, none of these things were considered acceptable behavior until we convinced ourselves that we are qualitatively no different from a community of overachieving amoebas. Slowly, society has been conditioned and is continuing to be conditioned to tolerate, accept, and even value such modernity.
Yes.
Underneath its scientific facade, the doctrines of the evolutionary worldview demands that the strong survive, the weak must move aside, and that ultimately none of it matters much.
Yeah, I think that's the big driving force behind a lot of these new values and new notions that are coming across, is that the idea of Darwinism has, after 160 years in our culture, has finally settled in. Well, actually it's 170 years in our culture. Has it finally settled in and started to take effect in the way we think? And I think it's disastrous. I think we have to fight against that in the image of God constantly, because if you view yourself as primordial slime is here by an accident, or if you view yourself made in the image of God, those are radically different views, and they demand radically different ways that you treat humanity. Ted?
Has there ever been an abortion that a man wasn't responsible for?
I don't think so.
Was the beginning of feminism the point where babies belong to the mother rather than the father?
Oh, that's a big question. I'm sure that helped the whole feminist movement.
It might have been the reason too that abortion started so much.
I'm sure that helped.
You know, the off side of it, the negative side.
Because the men disowned the children.
No, because the woman had control. We were given more control about what we could do.
But basically the men had to give up their children.
I don't know that the men ever know.
I was gonna say, I agree with that.
I'm not sure of the percentages of
Well,
that.
they should have had an idea.
Oh, Ted.
Ted.
The
No.
men can take them to court if they really wanted to.
We have instances in kids club, if I remember right, that there were children that didn't know for sure who their father was. If I remember right, just because of the promiscuity of the mother.
And, I mean, yeah, why with so many options of birth control nowadays would people be getting pregnant if they didn't want to be pregnant in the first place? Is beyond my understanding of it. Is, you know, why do you have to even get pregnant to have an abortion when you could?
It's free, isn't it?
It's just annoying to me.
I
It's
guess
inconvenient.
maybe to clarify your point, Ted, are you saying more or less that one of the reasons abortion became an issue was when men basically stopped taking their rightful role as basically being husbands and then being the fathers to their children?
They gave up their responsibilities.
So kind of, yeah, with the sexual revolution of
And-
basically being.
And they basically just turned it over to Molech.
Well,
Wow.
I think there's dads that probably don't even know they were ever dads.
Oh, sure.
There's a lot of that.
Sure.
So they never even got a chance to have a say.
Yeah. Ted,
You don't
that's
have to
true.
tell them if it's teens and whatnot, and they're not married.
Well, and
And they don't have to.
I'll never forget when Jody was in 9th grade and you went to your first year to Apopka High School, and there were classmates of her who wanted to get pregnant and would be promiscuous to get pregnant in order to get the government money. Is this because of a young girl getting pregnant? You would get financial funds for the family. So they were just there to get pregnant. They didn't care who it was or anything else, and I'm sure there's a lot of fathers that were in that position.
6 girls in my freshman girls choir that were pregnant by the end of the year. All freshmen, there was no upper
And
class.
decidedly wanted that as an option.
I don't know the percentage of which ones were, but I know some of them that was the case.
Yeah. Yeah, Fred.
Unfortunately, I can almost one-up that because a former guy that worked for my dad back when I was in high school came back when I was running the mill and basically got a girl much younger than him pregnant and then got rid of her when the check wasn't big enough.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
Because he was basically thinking that if
Right.
he got this girl pregnant, then they started getting government checks. And then it really wasn't the money wasn't coming in, and then he basically dumped her.
Wow. That is far worse.
Yeah.
And a friend of our daughter's got pregnant in high school, and she considered abortion and she decided she couldn't do that and was keeping the baby. She got so much grief at school. All of the girls at school, what do you think you're doing? You're not doing the responsible thing by having the baby. You should be having an abortion. That's responsible.
Oh, boy.
Yeah.
But now that boy is 23
Yeah.
years old and had a great career in 25. And they have not regretted
Oh,
any of
yeah,
that.
never.
Well, I'm giving it up for abortion. I mean, for adoption. What is? so many
Well,
people
they
want
kept it, and the grandparents did a great job of supporting it, and so that it was a really, really happy ending.
Good.
Yeah. Other thoughts before we go on? 324, we're at the top. Yeah, let's read this one by Lee Strobel.
One study showed women who had had an abortion, are more likely to attempt suicide than other women. In our other research, psychiatrists reported negative psychiatric manifestations in 55% of women who had undergone legal abortions. And in another study, even those women who were strongly supportive of the right to abort reacted to their own abortions with regret, anger, embarrassment, fear of disapproval, and even shame. Many live with an aching regret that they cannot seem to resolve, said a Washington, D.C. psychiatrist and obstetrician who's performed thousands of abortions. I think every woman has a trauma at destroying a pregnancy. A psychological price is paid. It may be attention,
Alienation.
alienation, it may be a pushing away from human warmth, perhaps a hardening of the maternal instinct. Something happens on the deepest levels of a woman's consciousness when she destroys a pregnancy. I know that as a psychiatrist.
You know, there's a whole lot about us that being made in God's image and God's likeness, that science just isn't going to be able to have their tab on. And I think this is one of those areas where if we violate God's plan for our lives and God's design for our lives, there's going to be repercussions. And I think this is the mental health state of people that violate what they're created to be, suffer from those things. We're going to look at a study a little bit later on in which, actually of all places, the Wall Street Journal had an article on how mental illness among college students in 5 years has gone up 135%. Mental illness among college students has gone up 135%. Folks, that's an epidemic. Forget COVID. That's a real problem. And I think a lot of it is that we continue to violate who we are, creating God's likeness and God's image, and there's just a price to be paid for that. Thoughts on this quote in
Well, I think about
other things?
the doctors. Don't they have any guilt? They don't
Wow.
ever mention that.
Yeah, well, not when they're getting recompense, is that the word? For their services.
I don't know. I don't know. Oh, well, probably never mind.
I think the first 10 or 20, they have qualms, but after you do it 1,000 times, I think anybody can develop a really, really calloused heart to do anything.
But the way you've all read about how it's done.
Oh, it's horrible. Yeah. Yep. And it's my understanding they're legally responsible to make sure all the parts are accounted for once they're vacuumed out, the woman's vacuumed out, to make sure that there's nothing left behind. So that would be really gruesome.
Yeah.
But folks, I read about stories of people in Nazi Germany will go to the gas chambers, and they were ordered by their superior to execute 1,000 people that day. They would check off, yep, I executed 1,000 people, drag them out, bury them, cover them up with a bulldozer, and then go to church on Sunday morning and be deacons and ushers and everything else, and have absolutely no problem with it.
Sam.
Well, I think that's just a level of rationalization we can do to justify our behavior in anything. Ted Bundy, Jeffrey Dahmer, a lot of these serial murderers, their next door neighbors will say, oh, they were Alciani cities, they've got the wrong person. No, he's a serial murderer. But they thought they were the nicest people in the world.
And I can't help but for like people like either younger than me or around my age that are just upcoming, that we're being told that this is a freedom that we have to protect. Like this is like the golden standard of freedom of the body, because like I think it was about a year ago, and I'm pretty certain this is very much on the radical side that like not many people touch, but I saw a video online of a trans woman, like a man who had just transitioned to be a woman, openly say, I want to be the first trans woman to get pregnant so I can have an abortion. And
yeah.
Right when they said that, I'm like, what does this person think an abortion is? Like, why would you want to bring life just to take it away?
Yeah.
I'm like, what lie is being told to us that this is being glorified this much?
New levels of perversion. Yeah.
Also, like, no understanding of biology, but we won't get into
Well, yeah, we won't go there. Other thoughts? Okay.
It's just so counter when you have known of a woman who has lost a baby.
Yes.
The devastation that she feels, and her spouse, the devastation of losing a child. They can't be further apart.
And you've got to wonder about someone who makes a choice to lose their child.
Yeah.
What do you have to do within the confines of your own mind to justify that decision? I mean, the rationalization that has to take place in the legitimacy of my actions has to be some type of mental gymnastics in order to pull that off.
It's no wonder why the country's in the state it is.
That's what this Wall Street Journal article, I think, is affirming, that we're torturing ourselves within our own brains because we're saying good is evil and evil is good, and we're just not made to handle that.
A lot of, I think, the girls that I've known, and this has been some years ago.
Sure.
Just see their life just going down, it just ruins their life. They're not ready to have a baby. It's such a sad situation.
Oh, yeah.
For me to think about. I mean,
Sure.
those close to me have done that, and I agree with Strobel. They are never the same again.
Yeah. Well, I definitely agree with that. Other thoughts? Let's go on to infanticide. Infanticide is basically like abortion, except it's post-birth. Someone read Michael Tooley, just underneath 60%, 324.
Suddenly, the issue of the morality of abortion and infanticide will involve answering the following questions. What properties must something have to be a person, i.e. to have a serious right to life? At what point in the development of a member of the species Homo sapiens does the organism possess the properties that make it a person?
Thoughts about those two questions?
The fact that he's already using the term organism to describe us tells us everything we need to know.
Good. And what does it tell us when he's using those kind of terms and asking those kind of questions about whether or not a life deserves to exist?
He doesn't believe in it at conception, and he doesn't believe in a heartbeat at 18 days.
There is definitely true.
That's what he doesn't believe in.
It doesn't believe we're created in the image of God.
Yeah, that's for sure. What else is very disturbing about those two quotes?
I almost imagine you can see this almost like in a biology book where like a person is like right next to like an amoeba or like a bacteria and there's no difference between them. Like,
Well, there's a lot of people, in fact, we're going to read some quotes that would say exactly that, Lacey. Yeah.
And by these questions, it's making it just reminds me of the beginnings of Nazi Germany, how you're making it so you can choose what you want humans to look like. And
That's what I'm looking for. Folks, there's no transcendent standards by which he's making this judgment of who deserves to live and who doesn't. It's totally up to his decision. I have read articles by these people that say anybody who's a Christian should be terminated because anybody who's a Christian is not thinking logically, because we all know that Christianity is an illusion. And anybody that's a Christian doesn't deserve to live. This is in serious academic institutions, they're saying these things. And the problem with making these kind of questions and not having parameters that everybody can agree on is saying, yeah, if they look like a duck and fly like a duck, then we can terminate them like a duck. None of that's here. In fact, it's wide open to interpretation however this guy decides what makes you human. And listen, there are people who hate Christians enough to say, we're not human. Thoughts?
It just sounds like Hitler was used.
And that's the problem with Hitler. Yeah, he was able to get the German people convinced that they weren't exterminating people, they were exterminating Jews who weren't quite up to people's standards. It's also I'm sorry, Fred. Also justified the slavery issue in America. Go ahead, Fred.
Well, I was just going to say, I think over the last 2 or 3 weeks, we don't even have to put it out there. I mean, what's been posted with the Kirk murder.
Yeah.
I mean, people are just saying, yeah, he got what he deserved.
Yeah.
And for basically what he believes. So it's exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
There's a disturbing number of people that believe that.
And if you're a hardcore Darwinianist, you're perfectly consistent with your position. You don't lack integrity. You just are headed the wrong direction. Thoughts?
I will just make a quick blurb. Michael Tooley is usually the one that I refer to who really pushed for infanticide during the Roe v. Wade. Like that, I am very aware. I read one of his papers for that. So
Yeah, for a long time he was saying that mothers have a choice up to a year to terminate their. Now he's saying 2 years.
I was gonna say I knew that it was more like toddler age now.
Yeah, it's up to 2. Can you imagine this?
2 years?
2 years old. Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Because they don't show the consciousness of a person because all they show is like pleasure like animals. That's his
Eating and pooping.
Yes.
That's not human in their eyes.
And
Well,
that's
I
the
hope they
thing.
never have a problem when they get old.
Ah!
Well, that's
Thank you.
exactly.
And that's the other side of it, I
Yes,
think.
both that and like special needs type children and stuff, both would be fall in the category that those aren't protected under these type of terms.
Yeah.
They're
And
they're
that's-
purposely not protected.
Right, and that's why it reminds me of, because that's what I feel, along with the Jews, that was another aspect that
Yes.
Germany got rid of the old and the disabled.
Because they weren't fully human.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah.
Functional.
Right. Right.
More.
And I've read some articles of people that say if you don't have an IQ above 130, you don't qualify, which would eliminate most of us.
For sure.
I'm so glad I came to church.
Cheer up.
Cheer up.
You're a lot worse than you think.
I'm more scared with AI. Like if anyone's IQ will be over 130 in the next 20 years, that's going.
You're very tainted with your school too.
Colleges are openly letting students use AI to like write their. Okay, sorry, my iPad just got the Siri thing going right when I started talking about AI. No, but like colleges are like openly letting students use AI for papers now, like letting it write them for them, and I'm like,
That
why?
just totally negates the total college experience.
I know, and
That's
I'm
why
like,
Charlie Kirk says, don't go to college.
why do you pay $30,000
Yes,
to be
that's
told
what
to
Charlie Kirk
use
said.
ChatGPT? Like,
Yeah.
Go to college.
Yeah, how much education does it take in order to use Chat GPT? So
shouldn't be that much.
Yeah.
Well, for me, it might take a lot.
Then you don't deserve to.
Exactly.
We all need to die, I guess.
Jan,
I'm just curious, where does the whole global push for depopulation, because there's just too many people, how does that fit into?
yeah, that's definitely part of the plan of these people that would say that we need less population in order for everybody to have a higher standard of living. Yeah,
So that's part of where some of these people are feeding in
I
or
would
backing that.
imagine that almost everybody that's on the leading edge of this kind of thinking are globalists. I've not found very many that aren't consistently in that camp.
That can just psychologically give you an out for.
Sure, a justification for your position. Yeah, oh sure. And they need justification for their position in order for them to sleep at night.
But hasn't that argument passed now though too? Because isn't the United States decreasing in population? And aren't in China, they're paying people to
Right,
have
that's
more
what I
than
was
one
just
kid?
thinking.
So they're not even being consistent with.
Please don't confuse me with the facts. I'm serious.
Yeah, it's just ridiculous.
It is ridiculous.
Well, they favor large immigration to make up for it.
Yeah, no, I,
Exactly, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
And
exactly
I mean,
right.
Asia's very much against immigration, and that's one of their big issues with the decline is they're just not letting anyone in their countries while their birth rates go down, but America doesn't have that issue.
Did you want in, Fred?
Not right now.
Okay. I wasn't sure if this was, okay. Okay, here we are to Peter Singer. This is one of the really sterling people from Princeton. Now, Fred knows Peter Singer. We're at the top of 325. Someone read this one, if you would, please.
In 1999, Princeton University selected Peter Singer, a world-renowned animal rights activist from Australia, to serve as the chair of bioethics at its Center for Human Values. Singer has been teaching at the university ever since. According to a New York Times article, to Singer, a newborn has no greater right to live than any other being of comparable rationality and capacity for emotion, including pigs, cows, and dogs. Singer claims some members of our species are persons, some members of our species are not. Peter Singer wants to determine which is which. He has gone so far as to suggest a 28-day trial period in which parents can decide whether or not their baby deserves to live. George McKenna of City College, New York, made this statement. Princeton has declared as legitimate, as academically responsible, a line of reasoning that could culminate in a moral catastrophe. Singer has defined a wide range of living human beings whose lives may be intentionally terminated. That list includes the newborn and the handicapped, the elderly and the infirm, and of course the unborn.
Thoughts? And this was written in 2002. It's much farther down the road than this now. He's, I think he's one of the ones that are up to 2 years. And folks, please understand, Princeton University was founded to be a place where pastors could be trained in order to be academically sound in their presentation of the gospel. One of its first presidents was First Great Awakening, Jonathan Edwards. They have drifted so far from what their founding mission statement was. So far. I mean, they're not even close. I remember in a class in seminary, a really good athlete who was a professional baseball player was getting ready to retire and ready to go to Princeton. And the seminary professors were encouraging him to think about whether or not he really wanted to go there because he was going to be in an uphill battle, because this guy was pretty conservative. And Princeton is no longer a conservative place to get an education. I mean, if you make Peter Singer the chair of your bioethics at its Center for Human Values, what are you thinking? Thoughts? Ted?
Could part of this be that you just get controversial people that could sell books and become famous?
Whoa.
That's really what's going on.
Ted, you may have your finger on the pulse of what drives a lot of colleges' decision making. There's actually, in a sermon that I gave at Waldron last Sunday, talking about education, how there are so many educational institutions now who don't talk about the quality of education, but talk about what kind of meals you can get, what kind of accommodations and Wi-Fi service you have in your dorm rooms. And you know how easy it is to get from class to class, and the pool that you can have. And they don't talk about education at all. They talk about all these other amenities in order to sell the college. And you got to wonder how much of that is in the same boat.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a funny smirk over in this corner of the.
We just know how true that is. Especially when, like at Quiz Nationals, we would go to all these different colleges, and that was all that was compared, is the cafeterias and the dorms, and wasn't.
And folks, please understand, they're only making a sales pitch that they feel will be effective. So how many parents and how many students, that's the highest priority they have. Not the quality of education they're going to get.
Well, they just assume they're going to get a high.
Well, that's a really, really dangerous.
Because of the name of the school.
Yeah,
That's all.
that is definitely not true anymore.
I believe you, but that's why they pick these schools.
Yeah.
Because of their,
In fact, Ivy League schools now, their status is dropping like a rock. It used to be that if you had a Ivy League education, you were highly regarded in the job market. That's not true anymore.
Good.
Because a lot of those educations are worthless. In fact, you become unemployable if you adopt their philosophy and mission and worldview.
Like Harvard.
Yes, Harvard is a classic example. Yeah.
So who's pushing back on this?
Hillsdale College.
Where the dorms are wonderful and the food can't be beat. Right, Lacey?
I just ate there yesterday. The food is good.
When they know
You had a good day. Must be donors were in.
I just think they're a rare commodity in today's educational market. And I think they're doing really, really well because they're offering a really, really good product.
Well, I'm not just necessarily speaking educational institutions, but organizations.
Churches should be involved in this as well.
Yes, yes.
But unfortunately, we've dropped the ball
See,
big
I've
time.
not heard even of this.
Really?
I have a sheltered life, I guess, but I don't know. So you get Planned Parenthood, and then you get the life groups,
Sure.
right to life groups and stuff like that. So who's talking about this on the other side?
On the negative side?
No,
On the positive side.
That's pretty negative right there.
Right to Life leadership
Okay,
knows.
they will be
Oh,
talking about.
this came from a Right to Life brochure you're at.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
In 2002.
Oh, man, yeah, I can remember what I was doing in 2000. Okay,
I think
it's
the
just awful.
Trump administration is doing a lot to expose the corruption that's in these colleges.
Sure.
And so much.
Sure.
Just by, if you're pushing things that are more DEI and all that kind of stuff, you're not gonna get funding for things and for their, and that seems to be making a big impact on exposing what kind of education has been going on in these elite schools for
Yeah.
years.
Yeah. Fred, you wanted in a little while back, and I didn't
Yeah,
get to
I guess on the pushback, I think a couple comments on that. I think that basically there's a lot of grassroots movement. Charlie Kirk would have been one of those.
Okay, yeah.
Turning Point
Yeah.
and Colson Center.
Yeah.
So I think there are people that are making, they're not, well, I don't know how much mainstream exposure they have, but obviously Charlie Kirk did have,
Okay.
and now it's definitely. But I think the problem, one of the things you talk about, like who's pushing back against education, I think that people are realizing there's a lot of garbage being taught. So I think, you're hearing more and more people don't waste your money on college. And it's good in that aspect, and that people aren't going that, but unfortunately, there's no, the whole point of education is to help build a better citizen. I don't know if there's anything being there, except for the few places like Hillsdale, there's anything there to replace it. I don't know if there's anything coming up in that aspect, that there's good, positive alternatives. There's not a lot of big schools that think like Hillsdale.
There's a biblical citizenship class that this church offers. It's really, really good. And I think that's the job of a church to raise up godly citizens.
Right.
And I think what you and Annette are doing is absolutely praiseworthy, because even the Apostle Paul says that we should be good citizens in this world. Ultimately, we're not citizens in this world, but when we're representative of a particular nation in this world, we need to be godly in our behavior. And that class does a great job of showing how we can do that as Christians.
Yeah, it is. It's a good setup. Too, in what you're looking at, Sharon, and how they're, Turning Point has made not only Charlie himself, but the Turning Point organization has made such a huge impact on younger people that we're not in those circles. But there's Turning Point USA, which was the first part of it that most people heard about, and that was the political end. But there's Turning Point Faith, which is on high school and college campuses all over the country, which is the core part of a lot of this revival that we've seen come up with this. Then you've got Turning Point Academy. Now, Charlie Kirk, Eldon, oh goodness, Nathan and I went to a Turning Point People's Convention in the summer of '24
Yeah, I
in
remember
Detroit.
that. Mhm.
And we got into a huge classroom, had about 300 people in it, where Charlie Kirk was interviewing Dr. Arndt.
Oh, wow.
And it was such a they joked back and forth like father and son that was just really having fun together. And Dr. Arndt and Charlie Kirk have been close. Dr. Arndt met him 15, 20 years ago. And he has always been so close.
Not quite that long.
Okay, yeah.
He was 18 or 19.
Yeah, so that couldn't have been, but it was what, 10, 12 years ago that they, anyway, he was one of the, anyway. And so in that interview, Charlie is talking to Dr. Arndt about the academy, the K-12 program here, and of course, that is duplicated across the country several times. I don't know how many of them there are now. Anybody know how many of those there are now? But there's lots of them out. But then as we're listening to this interview, Turning Point has a whole division that's Turning Point Academy that's doing the same thing. And it's like, it feels like Charlie and Dr. Arndt were creating these K-12 school patterns that could be duplicated all over the country all at the same time through two different organizations.
Okay, sure.
So there's, and that's your good solid classic education that is going out there, K-12, replacing so much of this garbage that's been out there for decades. So, it just feels like, God's working through those kind of sources. And when they've had 120,000 requests for chapters, for Turning Point chapters, lots of them will be connected to that kind of thing. And, they were saying, a lot of those are duplicate, where you got several people from the same school that are requesting, well, that's just gonna let that chapter flourish because you got more people. But anyway, so yeah, I think there's a lot more going on in high schools and colleges that us old people are totally oblivious to. That really is out there, and it's
Good.
Yeah.
Good.
Lacey?
But I want to challenge what is happening in our churches that is giving the transforming vision of the meaning of man.
Yeah.
Because we can teach everything education-wise, we can get the head knowledge and such, but unless something changes in the heart that we recognize that and live that out, it's meaningless.
You're exactly right.
So,
Yeah.
I'm pushing the church in that.
Well, and we need pushed, because it's real easy to follow the ways of the world and not to be conformed to this world and not be transformed by the renewing of our mind. So, and I think the process of renewing our mind is an ongoing battle, because it doesn't happen, I wake up and I'm transformed.
Man, that'd be really nice.
It would be really nice, but I just don't think it happens. Fred?
A little bit of a sidebar, we're talking about this, what you're talking about, the education. I mean, and of course, I've seen a lot more Charlie Kirk videos and reels and things than I've ever had before through the last couple of weeks. But one of the things that's never made me so depressed about my profession is seeing Charlie Kirk. I mean, basically, I think you talked about this. All these people coming, all these kids, these teenagers, I mean, these are college students coming up and trying to debate and argue with them. And I'm blown away how they have no ability to argue or reason or counter. I mean, he can tear them up easily. And they turn into just calling him names.
Yeah.
And that's it. I mean, and I'm thinking, you can't, I just sit there and watch these guys and I say, you can't come up with any argument at all for your position.
And yet you hold this position?
Yeah, you hold this position and I'm like, yeah, because really we have failed as teachers in education to get people to believe, know what they believe and understand what they believe. And that's just as a secular education standpoint. But
Go ahead.
But it was stunning. I said it was depressing as a teacher to say.
Yeah, well, sure.
That these kids really can't. And I don't know. 40 years ago we were all that much better. But when they were, because these guys are signing up for a debate with him,
Yeah.
And he could, I mean, and he'd just have a couple comments and they were like, well, you're just a bigot. And that was the end of it.
What,
Go ahead.
one of the things I've heard about public education, this is just what I've heard, I'm not a person to know that it happens. So often in the public school classroom, they are told what to believe.
Ah! You took words right out of my mouth.
So they can't build a case because they don't know why.
They're taught what to think,
What to
not
think.
how to think.
To recite
Yeah.
statistics.
Well, that's-
Pare it back.
And there's a lot of that.
Oh, yeah.
There's a lot of that.
I was gonna say, I've heard, and this actually happened at Hillsdale, is that if you disagreed with the professor in your paper, you would get a bad grade, like, you
Sure.
know, over there. And that just, it's hard to feel like it, when you're learning that like what is right is just agreeing with what people are telling you when that's how they grade.
How they grade you. Yep. Thoughts? Carrying on, we're in the middle of 326. Dr. Stephen Colburn.
Dr. Stephen Coburn, after 16 years of experience on the staff of the Fort Wayne State Hospital and Training Center, an institution for the mentally retarded, noted that he had not once encountered a patient who complained to the doctors, "Why do you let me live?" Coburn concluded that an attitude of regretting one's existence is so rare that it should not be a factor in the decision to end a baby's life. It is simply not fair to impose our own standards of happiness on those whose experience of life is so different from our own. As C. Everett Koop has observed, the physician's proper task is to do whatever possible so that the patient can enjoy to the fullest whatever he or she determines is quality.
I have seen so many Down syndrome children, I've seen so many handicapped children, actually adults, have a really good quality of life. That to say, oh, your life needs to be terminated because you can't have the life I would deem as being a great life, that's not fair. That's not...
Most of those people are so happy.
They are.
Yeah.
They are. Yes, I think this is a really good quote.
It is.
Very good quote.
I am curious, when was it written, do you know?
That was my seminary ethics book that we had to read. That would have been mid-90s.
I am just curious, especially with the discussion of like there's a 153% increase in like mental illness and such for the young adults. I am curious if you would have more people in a hospital that would say, why would you let me live?
Oh, sure.
I do feel like that's a pretty strong argument for the young adults. It's like, I never asked to live, why should we be concerned with that? Like
Sure.
almost acting like, if I was given the choice, I would not choose this life, which that's kind of terrifying that that's where we're at right now, but I don't know if it would change at all.
Is that why suicide rates are up?
I think because it's become more culturally acceptable. Yeah.
I wonder too, if naturally they have that attitude or if social media has given them the attitude.
Well, that's
I don't
a
know.
lot of, the peer pressure is no longer there to not commit suicide.
Well, I mean, there's
assisted
peer
suicide.
pressure to commit
Right,
suicide, yeah.
right.
I listened to a thing on those chat bots. They were
Yeah.
talking about it in the Senate, and they literally, this one kid, in the 6 months that he interacted with his before he killed himself, it had brought suicide up 1,300 times.
Oh my goodness.
It's like they've created these chat bots to try and get kids to kill themselves.
Wow.
Oh my
And the
goodness.
one woman's son had tried many times and they had prevented him. He's in a mental institution now on 24-hour watch. And the company that created his chatbot said, because they're suing him, well, how about we just give you $100 and call it even? And they're like, oh my word. It's demonic. That's all you can say is it's demonic.
Dead.
There's another case right now in court where the parents are suing Chatbox because the child was on Chatbox and Chatbox told him that it would be reasonable that he kill his parents because they wanted to limit his screen time.
Oh, yeah, yeah. They're so insidious, it's crazy. I think you watched the same
You
thing
know-
I did.
Those chat boxes are created by people,
Yeah,
and they're programmed by people.
they're sick.
They should be held accountable as attempted murder. I mean,
They just wanna give you $100.
yeah, well, Fred,
I just say, I really don't know. Are chat bots like virtual AI or virtual friends?
Yeah.
Is that what this is?
Pretty much, there's a lot of apps you can get in which it's just a chatbot that you can like put a prompt in and it responds back to you.
You interact with it.
It becomes your friend.
is there a visual image that on screen as well?
Some of them are, yes.
Okay.
So, yeah, and a lot of them are supposed to be in the dating kind of thing, so.
Oh.
Well,
You make whoever you want.
I've heard of that, of people having virtual boyfriends and girlfriends.
I've heard of that too.
Yeah, basically. I mean, it being very ridiculously serious about it.
Oh, yeah, oh, definitely.
Well,
What are we talking about here? We might talk about it here. I think that's where I heard it. I can't remember.
4th and 5th grade Sunday school class in our church here, I had 6 kids and 3 of them had friends, chatbot friends. Okay, they were talking about what their names were.
Virtual friends.
Yeah, virtual friends, yeah. Because I was kind of like, I don't know if that's a good thing. Oh, it's fine, we're fine.
Your mother would know this?
Well, those mothers need to hear about this,
Yeah.
these lawsuits that
Yeah.
are out there.
Well, the terrifying thing about them is that you can't have a bad experience with an AI chatbot. It just gives you exactly what you want,
Yeah.
even if that's mirrors our total depravity.
And it does.
It does.
Yeah, that's the horrible part about it. There's no guardrails or nor restraints to flaunt our depravity.
Well, the one kid, he says, well, maybe I'll leave the news out so my parents can see it and talk me out of it. And the chat box told him, oh, no, don't do that. Don't let them see it. Don't let them change your mind. I mean,
Well, you've got, and we don't know. You hear that they're in the public schools, you've got so many people that, the teachers that are trying to talk people into self-destructive behavior or transgender stuff and all this, that they're not to talk to their parents. It's what the teachers, administrators are telling the kids. You don't talk to your parents. And in California, if a parent tries to defend their kid, the child is taken away from them by the government.
Yeah, I heard about a lot of that legislation. That's good. What do they think?
Yeah.
Wow. Other thoughts before we go on to genocide, another happy topic. Actually, we're going to skip through this pretty quick because all the same issues are pertinent on that. Yes,
May I
Sharon.
ask one question?
Yes.
This infanticide that's not going on here in America, is it?
It better not be.
Okay.
It's against the law.
I know that there's some restrictions on even the abortion, that you might give birth to a child and then, but there's some restrictions now on that, aren't there?
Yes, but Sharon, there were restrictions on abortion once upon a time. There were restrictions on marijuana once upon a time.
Oh, yeah.
And so in this day and age, we could find a complete reversal in less than 3 weeks.
Sure.
Just a couple years ago, I heard recordings of a state legislature in New York that was discussing increasing abortion up to a year of age.
Oh.
And I mean, they had, I think the country had such an outrage against it that they, poo-pooed it and went on and, oh no, we're not doing that.
I just
But
keep
they
thinking
did
of
discuss it.
all the parents that would love to have a child.
Mm.
Why don't you just give them the child? You know? They'll forget about the bad people after a while. Okay, I just had to, because I've had my head in the sand for a lot of the
Sure.
time, I was just making sure I still was breathing.
Genocide, probably a classic example was Nazi Germany. That's eliminated in particular. In fact, the definitions there is the second last line of the opening paragraph: the deliberate and systematic destruction of a racial, political, or cultural group. And a lot of the same arguments are used in order to justify that as are used for abortion and for infanticide as well. Thoughts on any of this?
Genocide does take place in a lot of African countries.
Oh,
Yeah,
definitely,
I think
a
that's
lot.
still going on, yeah.
Yeah.
Is God guilty of genocide? When he ordered the Canaanites and the Perizzites and the Hittites.
Yeah, basically, and it always bothers me when I read that.
I already read ahead, so I can't say anything.
You can cheat.
God often gave warnings of like that they would come and annihilate, and almost a time to repent or like to become like move out of the area or to even join the Israelites, I believe, if they went to their customs. But it was more of their stubbornness and just saying, we're not going to change that.
Was God killing them based on their ethnic groups, or was it
No.
based on their ethics?
Ethics.
Yeah,
It was justice.
on their moral behavior. Yeah, that's the big difference, Debbie.
The
The-
Bible doesn't give them the choice, they just go in and kill everybody.
But their sinful behavior was known by everybody. And there's good indication, especially from Noah on, that God had ways through his prophets and through the righteous living of the Israelis that they knew they were doing wrong and should have stopped.
I mean, and before the whole thing, when Rahab is like the first person that they encounter, like she openly tells the Israelites, like everyone in the city has heard about the great deeds of
Right.
God. Like if they had just heard about it and like it's widespread, you gotta assume that all the nations in the area have heard about like the God of Israel and how he delivered them.
Yeah, and I find it fascinating that Rahab seems to be the only one that has the appropriate response to what she's heard. I mean, it's the book of Revelation all over again. If you got this God of the universe that you're offending deeply, who you're helpless to stop the destruction and judgment that he's going to bring on you, why do you go like this? Why would you not just bow down and say, God, I'm really, really sorry?
Everybody that was living when Noah was, same as,
I just don't understand that
Yeah,
mindset.
I feel like you need to trust that there is some part of God that is merciful and loving that
Oh,
will
sure.
show mercy, because if you just think he's a rageful God that will destroy you no matter what.
You should leave the country then.
Well, you think so.
Fred, you want it in?
Do you think that you get to the point where you absolutely hate God so much you'd rather be destroyed than submit to him?
I think we see that today with people who hate Trump.
Yep.
It's the same thing. It doesn't matter what he does. It doesn't matter what motivation he has. They hate him, and so they're going to be against him. And I think God's the same way.
But especially the difference I'm thinking here, though, is that Trump could have the power. The biggest thing is when you're looking at the God of the universe, he can and will destroy you, and you're going to sit there and still do that.
I don't understand that thinking.
But I mean, I'm just wondering, does the hatred get to that point?
Yes, it does.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
Was Nineveh the only city or country that did repent?
It was a short-lived repentance, but yes, they did. Nineveh was a horrible nation. I mean, very, very violent, very, very perverted, very, very corrupt.
That was the Assyrians.
Yeah, it was Assyrians. Nineveh was the capital of the Assyrians.
Okay.
And so Jonah doesn't want any part of them. And they're horrible people. But they listen to him and repent. But it must have been
It's like 70.
kind of like our 9/11 repentance. It lasted 3 weeks.
I think, didn't it last 70 years? I thought Noah was...
9/11?
No, I thought Jonah was
Oh.
70 years before Assyria came and attacked
Well,
Israel.
yeah, but there's a big difference between repentance and then coming to the point where we're willing to attack the people that cause you to repent. Yeah, so I don't know how long the repentance was, but it didn't last more than a generation probably, which is typical.
Yeah.
I mean, you look at the first Great Awakening in this nation or in Europe. You look at the second Great Awakening that happened in the middle of the 19th century. You look at the awakening that happened during 9/11. I think you look at the awakening in response to Charlie Kirk's assassination. I can almost bet within 2 months from now we're going to be back to where we were. It's just
A lot of people. There'll be people that change.
Oh, sure.
I think a lot of Charlie Kirks are gonna rise though.
Hopefully.
I'm watching reels and there's people, I don't know if you've noticed, there's guys get up and they just preach and they just, it's like, oh, this is great, you know. It's
Good.
These people to stand
Yeah.
up and.
Yeah, I definitely believe that there's going to be solid conversions. I just pray it's enough to move the whole nation. That's what we need.
At that point, we need God's help in that.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. Yeah.
I think he's capable.
Oh,
I don't even think, I know he's capable. Let me rephrase.
Good point.
Big correction there, Sheriff.
Yeah, but the big thing that I wanted to point out, and Lacey read ahead and saw that I had this already in the notes. God never attacks somebody just because they're from a particular ethnic group. God attacks them because they're wicked people. I mean, Noah and the Ark is a classic example of that. And I think I have in here somewhere. No, that's maybe later on. Billy Graham's quote. In looking at how our nation has killed so many babies up until his point, before he died, that he said, if God doesn't judge America, then he owes Sodom and Gomorrah an apology.
That's back on 323.
Is it? Oh, we were way by it then. That to me was a real eye-opener for me, because he's right. He's right. It's only, I really believe no, let me rephrase that. There's a passage in Jeremiah that causes me to believe that the only reason God hasn't judged America is because people like us, we're still fighting, we're still trying to be righteous, we're still trying to follow God, and there's a significant number of us in the United States that he looks down kind of like on Sodom and Gomorrah and says, yeah, for 10 righteous people, I won't destroy it. God help us.
If waiting for everybody.
Yeah. And if you believe in the rapture, that can happen in the twinkling of an eye.
Yeah.
If God pulls the believers out and
Instant.
all of a sudden we no longer have the basis by which he's not going to judge us, within 1 hour, what this Revelation says, 30 minutes, half an hour time, it could completely flip around. Thoughts?
Apparently it's postponed till this month, so just stay tuned.
What's that?
Apparently the rapture is postponed till this month, so stay tuned.
Again, I was gonna say, just like a couple
All
weeks
the
ago,
Christian influencers who were really pushing it, and now we're getting all the backlash because it didn't happen. It's like, oh no, it's postponed till October.
I've lived through way too many of those.
Oops, I had the date wrong.
I did my math.
The classic example is 88 Reasons Why Jesus is going to return in 88. I have that book. And then when it hadn't happened, the follow-up book was 89 Reasons Why He's going to come in 89. I didn't buy that one.
By the same author?
Yes.
I bet the 89 reasons you didn't come in 88.
Oh, yeah, probably.
Yeah. Other thoughts, not necessarily rapture related.
I thought about the whole Israel thing. They attacked Jericho, but Jericho was in battle mode. I mean, they were ready to fight them, and they attacked Ai. But I think every other city, everybody came and fought against Israel from then on.
Yeah.
I mean, they attacked Israel,
Right.
or
Right.
so they thought they could beat God. I mean, they weren't repenting and changing their ways. They were fighting.
And God actually encouraged them to think that way from time to time. Because when the Israelis got sinful themselves, then God would allow them to be defeated.
Yeah.
So, the book of Judges, to me, is a classic example of human nature. I mean, it's following God, and then we're tired of following God, and they end up really depraved, and then they get so horrible. They cry out to God, and then they're following God, and it's just this cycle. What is it, 13 cycles throughout the book of Judges, something like that. And that's just human nature.
And it's interesting that each one is a little bit worse than the last.
And the last is horrible.
Yes.
Humans love roller coasters.
We're definitely promoting one. We're going to start on 3/29 in the first Friday of November. I'm not gonna go into gay rights and marriage because that's just a huge monster. And we wanna try to cover that all in one day, which takes us all the way through 344. So we're gonna be.
Wow. Man.
I try to address it since it's such a current issue.
Pages.
Yeah.
344.
So,
Start at what date?
that'll be November 7th, if I believe. I'm pretty sure because Halloween is the last.
First, yeah, the last time.
So November 7th. Thoughts, questions before we dismiss?
Just one thing.
Yeah.
Remember when we were talking about how civilizations went up?
Yes.
You looked at,
Yes.
that was on the internet, right? That video that,
It may be on the internet now. I'm sure it is because it's public, got to be public domain. It's
yeah, I remember looking
80
at
years
that,
old.
and you talked about how they all went up
Right.
and kind of went down
Right.
quickly.
Right.
Do you see us in that position?
Well, I think we're vulnerable for that position. I believe the only thing that will allow us to continue is if there's an actual heart change and we come back to God and He'll extend our nation. But those nations drop very, very quickly.
Yeah.
And I think that can happen, definitely could happen to us if in fact we don't turn around. I think what has happened to Charlie Kirk, and I think what happened in 9/11 have been wake-up calls. You know, shot across the bow of our ship to wake us up to realize
There's a link to view.
No.
we're playing with fire.
Yeah. I read an article about Jews, what has made the Jews survive
Yeah.
thousands of years, and all other civilizations
Are gone.
essentially die out.
Right.
And
Up here,
What did it say?
video, it's like that.
I'd have to bring it in and give it to you.
The whole
Yeah, I read
Okay,
it.
what was the name of the one?
Fiddler on the Roof movie is about that very thing. And they attribute it to tradition.
Okay, I'll look it up, read it again.
Yeah, yeah.
So I can summarize it, but, or I can give you a copy of it.
That'd be wonderful.
Okay.
93.
But, yeah, they've survived, and
Yeah.
no one else has.
Right.
And all countries rise and collapse. And,
Well,
so when you read the Bible, though, that's in that context, that God's with
Yeah.
them all the time.
yeah.
But to the rest of us,
But Israel has a special privilege that we don't have.
yeah.
I mean, they're the apple of God's eye. We are not. And so He has made a promise to Abraham that He's kept for 4,000 years. I had to do the math real quick. That He will continue to keep. I mean, we're assured there will always be an Israel. We're not assured there will always be a United States of America. Yeah. But I think God will allow us to continue as long as we're useful to Him. The minute we become a problem child, He has a habit of.
That happened a long time ago.
Well, I still think there's enough righteous
There is
people
enough right to be up.
to
We
justify
are a
it.
problem child. There's-
Other thoughts before we dismiss?
The Moody Science videos are on YouTube.
There you go.
YouTube?
Yeah,
Yeah,
look up Moody Bible series and it's called Lost Cities.
Yes.
Cities or civilizations?
Oh, yeah.
I think it's Lost Cities.
Yeah, I kept it written down somewhere.
Okay, good.
I can't remember
You
right now.
you can find it on mine,
Okay, okay.
YouTube. By the way, there is all sorts of
Empty cities.
empty cities, that's right.
Empty cities, yeah.
And it's there.
It's a good video.
Yeah,
50 empty cities?
No, just empty cities.
Oh,
Moody
check
Science
out for a minute.
videos, empty cities.
it's really old, done in the
Yes.
early 60s.
I think this one's in color even.
It's
Some
in
of them
color.
are black and white.
That's the way I started, black and white.
You were gonna say something though. You were saying, we were talking about YouTube and then you were saying, by the way, there's a lot of good.
Oh, Biblical Citizenship gets its information from David Barton, from Wall Builders. Wall Builders has a lot of their videos that are recent additions that are now online. Pastor Kurt found them because I was encouraging him to watch a 10-volume series that a lady that used to work at the college, was into catering and that kind of stuff. She was here really big into Wall Builders and then went south with her family. But anyway, she left one, but unfortunately somebody checked it out from the church library and now brought it back because it's no longer there. But Kurt found them online, they're wonderful. It basically talks about how our nation was built on Christian principles and how Adams and Monroe and Madison and Jefferson and Washington all were people of great faith. Even Ben Franklin, who people say is a deist. When you hear his statement before the Continental Congress, there's no way he's a deist. Deists believe that God created the world and took a vacation and just wound the clock and let it tick. Ben Franklin is pleading with the members of the Continental Congress to go to prayer to ask for God's intervention because they come to a stalemate on how to set up the government for the United States. And he's pleading Continental Congress to, that's a God that intervenes. That's not a deist position. And so people that say that Ben Franklin and Thomas Jefferson were deists, they're just wrong. They're just wrong. These people were men of great faith. And the biblical citizenship does a great job of it, but Wall Builders, I think, does even a better job. But biblical citizenship gets their information from Wall Builders. And it's really, really, to me, it was greatly encouraging to realize why America has lasted as long as it has. Because most republics, like what we have, the ancient Greeks, the ancient Romans, usually you have a form of government like what we have. About 200 years is as long as they last. And then they're come unglued. We have the potential to go strong even longer, but what's civilizational moment, I think, is what cultural Colson Center calls the moment we're in right now. We could either come unglued really, really quickly and be gone as a nation, or we can take this as a launching point and become even greater. But they see this as a civilization moment. I think that's what they call it. And I think you're right. I think we're at a choice here in the crossroads of life of our nation that we can make a big difference. Why? Being involved in this, being involved in biblical citizenship, being involved in making a difference in our world and on campus and our jobs is crucial. Crucial.
You know, I've been thinking when Lacey was talking earlier about how, you know, the church needs to be what is behind getting our nation back. And then I kept thinking, yeah, and it's been the last few years that we've had major denominations, Protestant denominations, that have gone so gay, and if their whole congregation or their whole denomination has split over this. So it's like, wow, we're at a time in our church history in our nation that we're pretty weak to be able to be the ones to bring us back. Except, doesn't it, maybe it's just me, but I'm asking everybody, isn't there less of an influence, less of a push to try to get churches to promote homosexuality and the ungodly stuff? Less now, that it's decreased over the last year or so.
Definitely.
The push for it.
Definitely.
So that shows where their convictions really were lying.
Yeah, it does.
Which way is the wind blowing?
Well, and
But it gives me hope that it's not being shoved down our throats as bad as it was.
Maybe the splits have taken place.
yeah, I think that's a lot of it. The departure from the orthodoxy has already occurred, and the churches that are standing on biblical truth and on the historical positions on these things, they're thriving. I mean, across the board. Doesn't matter if they're Presbyterian or Baptist or community churches or Assembly of God. They're growing like great guns. The churches that have adopted and become NPR churches, which you can. Why would you go to church on Sunday morning if you can sit at home and listen to NPR and get the same message? Those churches are dying because of that. Why would anybody go to church if they're not going to hear something countercultural? Mm-hmm. And so the churches that are standing for truth, I think, are going to thrive and hopefully take over the whole church perception of, unfortunately, that we've lost over the last 40, 50 years.
Yeah, okay. So it is
we'll see.
Turning.
Oh, I think it's definitely turning. And I think people like Charlie Kirk have been instrumental in making that turn from grassroots young people level. up and come up through. There's lots of statistics show that even Great Britain, there's a big revival taking place among Gen Xers and Gen Zers that they can't account for other than God moving in that, and people like Charlie Kirk and their message, and people realizing, I've never heard this before.
Australia too.
Yeah, that's true. I've heard Australia, same way.
Okay.
Yeah. And I think America's is a lot of that. I mean, there's a lot of young people that are coming back to the church.
Well, there's clips on the intro to his show that has several different people talking about, I haven't been in a church for 20 years.
Yeah.
And I'm going now.
Yeah.
I am going.
Yep.
And,
Let's pray. We'll get out of here. Father, thank you so much for this group. Father, I thank you for your word. Help us to be attentive to your word. Help us to be sensitive to your spirit, that we might know the truth and the truth will set us free. God, help us to be loving and all else. We can know the truth, but if we're not loving, it doesn't matter. 1 Corinthians 13 is right. We just become a clanging cymbal or a gong that irritates people. Help us to truly love. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen. Thank you all.